you guys for coming. I think you're I don't think you guys are our very first female guests ever. And we've honestly been trying to get more female guests because I think right now across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, we have like a 4% average of female listeners. Shout out to all of them. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. We're trying to grow it more, but we're just grateful for you guys for doing this in the first place. So thank you.
Yeah, so awesome. Thanks for having me too.
Welcome. Mercedes and Naomi, for everybody listening who doesn't know. You've done a podcast before, you said. You have your own?
Yeah, I started it during the pandemic when I had time.
Nice.
Yeah, so I had started that and I really wanted to share my entrepreneurship journey on there. I had a lot to say. I've been through a lot over the years of running and owning my own business. So
that's awesome. We're excited for that because people who've done their own podcast before are obviously more comfortable communicating on the mic and everything. So awesome. But I guess for us too, because we've never really sat down and had a conversation like this ever, why don't you kind of give us like a background elevator pitch of like who you are, what you do, and how you got to be there?
So where do I even start? We go way back. I got my first job in retail when I was 15 years old. I was working at the mall. I worked at Justice. It used to be, I don't know if you used to shop there when it was knitted too.
Yep.
Yeah. All the girls know. And I've always had a passion for fashion since I was younger. And so getting into retail, I picked up on, customer service skills. And I really enjoyed interacting with customers in person and helping them find like the perfect outfit to wear. So that's kind of where my passion really grew. And at the time, I was in high school. They don't teach you anything about entrepreneurship or owning your own business. And so that was all foreign to me. And I once I graduated high school in 2012, I went to the JC and I began studying business administration, thinking I was going to work in like just an office environment. I really didn't know which route I wanted to go with my career. And at this time, I was working in the mall, but then I had gotten a new job at this other boutique that I had opened up in the mall. And that's when I learned about kind of entrepreneurship because this was a locally owned business. And so I got to work for both corporate and locally owned. So I got to kind of scale the two and gained a lot of experience from both. And so as I was in college studying business administration, I was not liking any of my classes. I just wasn't connecting with like the business aspect of everything, like all of that. And so I had met with my counselor because I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit. And at this time too, I had actually launched Bow and Arrow on the line. I was a college student and I noticed that it was hard for us to find like cute, trendy styles at an affordable price. And like, we were kind of tired of going to the mall because everyone was like rocking the same shirt or jacket. And so I launched Bow and Arrow online. I was taking all my paychecks and just putting it into inventory. I had a small section like in my house in this little closet. And this is back when Instagram had no algorithm. So easy to grow and to just scale your business on there. This is when everyone wanted to be like a brand ambassador and stuff. So I, monetized my Instagram and got brand ambassadors to kind of spread brand awareness for Bow and Arrow. And my business is Bow and Arrow Clothing, a women's clothing shop that I had started online. So catered towards college students. And so once I had launched that, again, I was running everything from my house as a full-time college student, working part-time, full-time in retail. And so I had met with my counselor and, she was like, what are you interested in? Like, what are you doing right now? And I was like, well, I have my online clothing boutique. I love fashion. And so she was the one who was like, well, why don't you open up your own shop? And I was like, I can do that.
That's a cool counselor.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, 100%. And I didn't know that was something I was capable of doing. And so she was like, yeah, let's, I don't want you to waste any of your time here. Cause I was thinking of getting plugged into anatomy. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, I love anatomy, but no, completely different career. And she was like, let's plug you into our entrepreneurship program here. So that's what she did. And I learned so much throughout that program and the courses I took. And at this time, I ended up getting a job as a waitress. And I began saving towards opening up my own shop. And after graduating, I was able to save enough to open up my first brick and mortar in downtown Cotati.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
How long did you have to save for?
I took about a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Patience
for sure. And not only that, but also too, I did need additional funding to purchase inventory because that was like the huge expense for me. So I did get in contact with a micro lending business out of the Bay Area from San Francisco. They're called the Working Solutions. So I had met with them and kind of shared with them where I was at with my business, how much I had saved and what I was still in need of. And so I had to do like a whole presentation for them and pretty much just sell my dream, sell my heart. And I was like, this is the only hope that I have. And because at this time I was getting denied by every bank. I went to like 5 different banks and they're like, no, you have to be established for like 3 years. And I'm
10 years. Some banks have told us like they do not make it easy.
Not at all.
But they'll give you student loans very easily to take on.
Yeah, which is crazy. So thankfully I was intimidated because keep in mind, I was 20 years old. I was asking for, this money to help fund my business and they took a chance with me, thankfully. And I was able to get approved for that small loan. And I put that all towards my inventory. And then I was ready to open and I opened July 16th of 2016.
What was the first day of business like?
Yeah, so I had to do a whole sales projection for Working Solutions in order to get the micro loan. And so I was like, okay, if I at least make $300 a day, that will be enough to cover my rent and my utilities. Keep in mind, I had no intentions of hiring because I was just putting all my focus onto the business. So that day, I didn't know what to expect at all. My Instagram, we had like a little over 400 followers at the time. And I was just like, at least if I can get $300, I'll be good. So that day, the whole community really came out and we made close to $2,600.
Wow. What a first day.
Yeah. I know. I was just blown away.
That's awesome.
By all of it.
They say when you have good luck on something on your very first try, that's a sign from the universe that you should move forward with that. So it sounds like obviously that worked out for you.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's crazy for the first day.
It is. Yeah. I did not expect that. So the next day I quit my waitressing job. Hey guys, thank you.
Then how long before you started hiring people and getting help? Like were you scrapping things out by yourself for a while just to make it happen?
So that whole month I worked every day. We were open 7 days a week, 11 to 6. And then the next month I brought on my first employee. And I was just starting off this business. So it was my baby. So I had a lot of control. So it took me some time to really ease back and, delegate some responsibilities to them, which that's a learning experience in itself.
Yeah, for sure. It comes down to self-awareness, emotional intelligence, understanding your ego and being able to like let things go and nurture them. And it takes extra time too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to deal with, but powerful once you overcome it. So where'd you go from there after hiring people, kind of scaling Bow and Arrow? Because I'm just looking at like a surface level of what you have going on from your Instagram and everything. You have a lot of stuff going on. So like kind of what other businesses and stuff have you gotten into?
Well, yeah. So Bow and Arrow, that was my main thing. And I, was really able to scale that. And during the pandemic is when we had a huge shift. Now, keep in mind, I opened my business in 2016. So I've been through flood, fire, pandemic.
Just about everything crazy.
Damn.
Yeah. So it was not an easy couple of years, to say the least, But during the pandemic is when I saw this huge wave of just new entrepreneurs and people starting new businesses. And, everyone had downtime to finally like really explore what they're passionate about and, getting, starting those businesses. And I wanted to give them a platform where they can connect with the community and just build brand awareness. And I'm always inspired by LA. I love going out to LA. So I was really inspired by the Melrose Trading Post out there. I don't know if you guys have been.
I haven't, but I've heard.
I don't think so.
I've heard.
Yeah, our last guest he used to be the owner. He just sold his part, but of Cookies and Kicks.
Was it Alex?
Yeah, it was Alex. Yeah. So he was kind of giving us a breakdown and it sounded like a really cool area, but please continue. Sorry.
Oh my God. No. Yeah. So, I went there, I was going to source cause I loved sourcing. I loved vintage at the time. So aside from Bow and Arrow, that was kind of like a side thing, vintage and hunting for that sourcing. And so when I went there, it was just a bunch of like people our age who had their businesses there. And I was like, this is such a cool vibe. And I was like, I want to bring this to Sonoma County. We don't have this. And so during the pandemic, I think it was like in September of 2019 when some things were lifted, we can go outdoors finally, but you had to be masked. You had to be like 6 feet apart. I decided, I was like, hey, I'm going to try to put together a little market for these small business owners. And so at Bow and Arrow Clothing, we have like a side parking lot, and it's like the perfect size for just like 10, 11 vendors. And so I reached out to a few that I knew of in the area. Again, like there was nothing like this in Sonoma County, so it was the first time doing it. So a lot of people denied.
Wow.
Yeah, they weren't. Yeah, they didn't know what it was about, obviously, and maybe they didn't know who I was. But so I reached out to like a handful of small businesses that I found on Instagram locally, and then some from the Bay Area as well. And I was able to pull together 11 small businesses.
Wow.
All of them were local from Sonoma County. They're all women owned as well. And so I was like, hey, here's the game plan. We're going to have this market. I think we had it on a Sunday. I was like, here's what to bring: your canopy, some bags, business
awesome.
cards. Yeah. And so I promoted the event through Bow and Arrow Clothing. I marketed it on there and invited the community to come out. Of course, we had to follow, COVID guidelines and stuff. I didn't know what to expect, it was our first time doing it. But everyone came out. It was such a great turnout. And then from there, the next market, I ended up calling it the SoCo market. Because at first I just called it a small business market. And then as we started to gain traction and a lot of small businesses were so interested in it, they, were reaching out to me through DM. Like we got so many people, and I was like, okay, so we had 11 vendors. Let me see how much I can really max out this space. So we took over the side street, and then there was like a little patch of grass. So I was like trying to measure it by my foot, like 10 by 10 spaces, trying to see how many we can fit. And we were able to fit either 32 or 33 max. So our second time around was even bigger turnout. And then that's when we started to get businesses from other parts of the Bay Area reaching out, wanting to be a part of this. And again, these markets were so new to us. So everyone wanted to be a part of something like this. And it was such a great environment because I never got to be around so many like-minded individuals that were my age.
Yeah, definitely. The hell of a community of just like hungry young people.
Yes.
When the Soho holiday market, when we were there and we were videotaping entrepreneurs and asking them like what their advice to anyone looking to start a business out there is, almost 9 out of 10 answers was just do it, which is like, that's what comes to my mind too. It's a very simple cliche one, but it is like, it's just, you gotta reach out there and go. Like even, sorry, lost my train of thought a little bit. But one thing I noticed too, having the hunch when you went to LA to look for trendy clothing, it got really, really popular the last, I feel like year or two. So that's great intuition on that. And then also what I was going to say before is, good on you, also for not knowing what was going to happen with COVID and everything going on, but still saying, I'm just going to take this risk and essentially learn from it. Right. That's incredible. That's really cool.
I remember because I think I went to one of the first couple markets. I think it might've been your second one because it was on the grass. And I went because I was just like, people that I knew had their shops there and their little tents. And when I went, I was like, whoa, this is completely different to what I was expecting. When people were telling me we're going to have tents outside, I was thinking at the pulga. Yeah. People just have the little tent and the little table. But then I show up and people were decked out and they had their banners and everything. And everybody was so excited to be there. Everybody was so welcoming. And I think it was a good time because everybody, since it was COVID still, it was one of the first few times where we were able to go out and actually vibe with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great time. Even as a consumer. I think everybody can agree it was a great time.
Yeah, great timing. Has it been hard, just being a young entrepreneur, getting these spaces? You've brought some to downtown Santa Rosa, I've noticed in the past year or so. How is it navigating those connections and everything, and actually making stuff happen with it?
Yeah. So as come our third market that we were planning, we outgrew the space. At this point, we were getting 100 people applying, interested in wanting to be a part of it. And so we moved over to La Plaza Park in downtown Cotati, which was just the street right over, where I was able to accommodate up to 60 vendors. So we moved there, again, bigger event. And then after that, our name got out even more. So
Wow.
applications roll out again, we got even more people applying. And at the same time, the city of Santa Rosa actually reached out to me, and they invited us to host a market at the old Courthouse Square, downtown Santa Rosa.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was intimidated because it's a big space.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I was like, I know we have the vendors, but I was like, it's still such a big space compared to what we've been working with. And so I was like, okay, I did like a poll. I was like, everyone, should we go? And of course, everyone's like, we need to go. So I said yes. And we had our first one. Was it like last year? I don't know.
It was the October one, right?
No, it was in May. We had our first one in May, I think, of last year or the year before that. But anyways, we were able to accommodate 80 vendors there. Yeah. And this was our first time that we launched our SoCo Market After Hours event. So instead of having it on a Sunday, we had it on a Friday from 5 to 9. So it was a completely different vibe. It was super fun. That was like, one of our biggest markets when we were first starting. It was such a great turnout. Like that picture was the first time we were there at Santa Rosa. And so that event was hard to coordinate because of the space. I had to map out 80 booths,
right? And it's a square.
And it's an awkward square. Yeah. So once that happened, then the city of Santa Rosa actually wanted me to take over their Wednesday night markets.
Wow.
I know. So they wanted me to be there every Wednesday. I was like, I can't do that. I cannot do that.
That's
and I
got to be close to a full-time job.
Yeah, literally. And I wanted to keep, the market really exclusive and something to look forward to. So I was like, I'm going to continue just doing the Fridays there. But we quickly grew for sure.
That's incredible. What are your goals with the SoCo Market, like going forward and everything?
Yeah. So, it's really evolved into something else. And I'm this year, I really want to dedicate my time to figure out what that looks like, because we've become more than a market. Like we've become a resource in the community.
Right.
Last year, I did the first time where I was going to local shops, new businesses that just opened up, and highlighting them on our SoCo Market page. And so a lot of people enjoyed that. The businesses enjoyed that because it would bring people in. So I wanted to continue to bring awareness to these new businesses and just businesses in general. And then we had our young professionals mixer night, which was really fun. And super a lot of people, were like, when is that going to happen again? So I am considering... Well, I'm actually in the works of shifting everything to be a nonprofit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's all. It is a lot for the community, especially the networking things. I just want to touch on those because he just went to I won't say the town, but a Chamber of Commerce meeting, which is like older networking events, right? And we're the youngest people there by like 20, 25 years. So I think having just that voice for young entrepreneurs of like just talking about improvements, ways you could work together and build together is gigantic for the community.
And like these mixer events are so beneficial. Like before I opened Bow and Arrow Clothing, I was attending mixers that the Hispanic Chamber Commerce would put on. And that's where I found connections to working solutions and connections with people helping me put my financials together. So I always preach that to anyone that I'm meeting, attend mixer events, get plugged in, make those connections.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Your network is your net worth, and that's the way to create it for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
What's the business side of it? You said you're turning it into a nonprofit. So starting out, did you have to put the money up front to get the space and then go find the vendors, or did you find the vendors?
Yeah. So when I first started the SoCo Market, I didn't charge anyone. I didn't want to. I just wanted to bring the community together. So I was never had plans of turning it into its own business. It just evolved into that. And once we started getting traction, I was like, okay, maybe I should charge for these things now because, it was a free event, you know? So I began, doing a vendor fee and charging. And at this time, Bow and Arrow was, funding into it, whether it was marketing, flyers, anything I needed. But it wasn't until our third market where I completely made it its own business, and titled it the SoCo Market. So it became its own entity in that sense. So it's definitely, its own business now.
That's a good testimony to just doing things in life that you feel is just putting good energy into the world returns good energy into the world, especially when it comes from you know, the lens of passion instead of like trying to make money first,
Right.
then money seems to become a
No.
byproduct of that. But when you're not aiming for it is when the most beautiful things seem to happen for sure.
Yeah,
So kudos to that too.
Like passion over profit. You know what I mean? That's like one thing I always remember that like burned in my brain in marketing too, is like when they were sharing numbers of people who, you know, were starting businesses because, you know, it was a good industry to get wealthy in or whatever, and how just that wouldn't succeed long term because when things get hard, you don't have that passion to fall back onto. And that's what gets you through the hard times, you know, especially through my experience. So that's like one thing that I learned as well.
Very well said and agreed too. It's what's going to keep you moving forward. Tell us about Holy Vintage too.
Yes. So Holy Vintage, I opened Holy Vintage in October of 2021. So, you know, throughout that like a year, I pretty much grew to a third business. So I don't know what I was thinking. I just think I'm like superwoman over here or something. But my passion, so being plugged in with, you know, vintage vendors within the SoCo market, making those connections throughout the Bay Area, like it fed into my love for vintage and thrifting. And this is something that's been a part of my life since I was little. Like I would go with my grandma to like the Salvation Army. I was hunting for clothes, hunting for Barbies, like always been a thrifter. And so the opportunity came up, doors opened for me to open up Holy Vintage. And so the concept behind Holy Vintage is everyone in there, there's over 30 small businesses who sell and store with us. So it's consignment based. So when you walk into Holy Vintage and you're picking up a shirt from a rack, that shirt belongs to another small business, another vintage curator.
Wow.
So
That's super cool.
we have 22 vintage curators who sell and store with us. So I wanted to give these businesses who didn't have a storefront, who were only online or only on Instagram, an opportunity to sell in person. So that's what that concept was. So it's a co-op space. And then we have our local maker section too. So you'll find local makers, you know, from the Bay Area in store who sell with us. So that's been amazing to grow and to be a part of and to tap into, you know, that side of my passion.
That's incredible. Where does all this ambition come from?
I don't know.
You don't know?
It's a blessing and a curse.
I feel like a lot of it for people is, you know, it could be their parents, like a bunch of things that happened that just made things turn out this way. But I'm always curious, like what makes good entrepreneurs tick and whatnot. But
No, yeah. And people ask me too, like, oh, your parents must be entrepreneurs, but you know, they're not. You know, my dad immigrated over here, and one thing that I love about my parents, they're young parents, so you know, we did a lot of growing up together, but they never, you know, forced me to pick a career or forced me to be a dentist or a doctor or to, you know, go to a university or anything. Of course, if it was my interest, they were there to support me, but they allowed me to spread my wings, to make mistakes, because I did. But that's like one thing I'm really grateful for.
wow, that's awesome. It's just so nice.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious of like, maybe where did the passion come from to want to help business owners?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, it definitely sparked, and I always say this, it sparked during the pandemic. Everyone was in need. These, you know, restaurants were in need. You know, it was being in downtown Katati. Are you guys familiar with here? We have the bar scene there, right?
Yeah.
And is it Friar's Tuck, right?
I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah, totally blinked out. You know, they were really struggling and try to look for any outlet to sustain, you know, to stay above water. And I was trying to get creative and just trying to figure out what can we do? Like our community is in need right now.
Right.
And so that's when, like, you know, I started to really strategize and see what the need was, you know, and I have a passion for helping people. I mean, that's no doubt in that. And so, you know, I just kind of listened to what was going on around me and just try to, you know, find a solution to it. But I think for sure that was the start of my passion for community and for helping other people start businesses of their own. And when I meet someone and they share what they're passionate about, like, it fuels a fire in me. And I'm like, you need to do this. You need to pursue this. Like, you know, so that's like one thing too. I will push you to like start that business.
Yeah.
The best gift you could ever give someone though is empowerment, like belief in themselves that they could go out and achieve anything. It's like the most beautiful transition and transcendence you could ever see in a human for them to just be like, you know what, I got this shit my way, essentially. So that's really, really cool. Hell yeah. It's just, it's illuminated by a higher power to uplift people, essentially. I have one more question about Holy Vintage too. It might be tougher to ask, but when Naomi and I were prepping for this podcast, we were talking about what we were going to talk about essentially. She told me that you run Holy Vintage with your significant other.
Oh, yes.
I'm just curious, as a single entrepreneur, I think about this a lot, like in the future. How do you make doing business with your significant other work? Like, what's your philosophies on that?
Well, that's the thing. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work or not.
Right.
So this was something that I've been passionate about, and I invited him into the business too, to be a part of it, because this was a huge project of mine, and he's like into vintage as well. So he came on board. So everything's under me. The business is, legally it's under my name and stuff, but he came on board and was our shop manager and did all the ins and outs while I worked on the back end of the business, which was a huge, huge help. But, to be honest, we tried it out, and I was like, because I have this certain vision.
Right. And it has to align.
To be, it was hard to really come together in that sense. So we both he's still involved in stuff, but, he ended up moving out of the business, and which is, in a way, it's nice having someone in your relationship who's a 9-to-5 and who has that stability, and having one person who's an entrepreneur. So that's what we both decided to do. But he's still involved with the business and stuff. But everything else, like the creativity and the running it too, I ended up just completely taking that over. So that was a learning experience for me. And we both knew going into it, we're like, okay, we'll see how this works, because when I have a vision, I know
know where you want to go, and you're like, I'm gonna get there.
Yeah. So it also taught me a lot too about just patience and stuff like that. I feel like it definitely brought us a lot closer, obviously. But yeah, I'm really grateful for his help till this day and all of that.
I always admire when I see people making that work fluidly. I'm like, that is cool. I wonder what the conversations are like there. Like what if it's just straight business, or like how they combine it with the romanticism.
That was hard to break apart.
To balance.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's
even sometimes me and Angel, when we work together, there'll be days where it's we, as much as we don't want to bring our work home, we do, and we'll be talking about work all day. Yes. And it's maybe we should just take a break and not talk about work.
Yeah. We made sure of that too. The minute we got home, it's
no more work.
No more work. Yeah.
Got to be disciplined with it. Right on. That's cool.
What is your work-life balance like? How do you find that balance of being able to do the things that you enjoy doing? And I know that you do enjoy doing what you do now, but finding time to have passion projects and just being able to do things that you enjoy.
Yeah. So I learned a lot this past year. So I went full-time. Well, I've been full-time, but I'm saying full-blown running 3 businesses. I went from one, giving it my all, to now having to spread myself amongst these 3 businesses that demanded so much from me. So I hit rock bottom last year after opening Holy. I was in an unhealthy place. I'm a workaholic. And so I really learned a lot about myself, and the importance of taking care of yourself, to not overwork yourself. So I had to learn what that balance was, because I thrive off of working. Like I said, I'm a workaholic, and I learned that it gives me validation, which is really bad. You don't want to do that. So I learned how to not do that. And so with that being said, this whole year in 2022, I had the whole year to really reflect on what makes me happy, where I can find that balance, where I'm able to take care of myself, but still, enjoy my passion without it becoming a responsibility.
Right.
Because I started to feel that way. And that's when you start to you just don't enjoy the things that you do.
Right. You start to lose that spark of I just want to do it to do it.
Yeah. And I was burnt out on the daily, And so with that being said, I'm sure you guys saw on Instagram, I actually just sold my first business. And that was the result of that. I have really I've learned what my passion is, and what fuels my soul. And bow and arrow has been a huge part of my life. It's gotten me to where I'm at today. And I feel like I've outgrown that business. I have other business ventures I want to explore. And that was like that was something I've been dealing with all last year. I was fighting that, but I got that in my spirit. Like, it was time to let go of that.
Right.
But I was like, I felt like my identity was tied in that business. And so I did fear what people were going to think, and people knew me from bow and arrow and all of that. But it's like, you need to put all of that away, because that's not what it's about. And your identity isn't tied into your business.
Yeah, you're not bow and arrow. You're Mercedes.
Not bow and arrow. Exactly. And once I like came to that realization, it felt like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders. And that's when I knew like this was the right decision to make.
I was going to ask if it was hard just to let go of your first baby, but it sounds like it was more relieving, more so for you at the time, just because you were so stressed out.
Yeah. And that's how I got confirmation that that was the right thing to do.
Wow. So now going forward, are you just wanting to focus on Holy and SoCo and kind of like less is more philosophy in things instead of trying to add on new and being spread so thin?
Yes. I mean, right away I was already like, I'm ready to jump into this new thing, but I'm like, okay, let's not do that. Okay. Let's like really just take the time to enjoy what I have right now. I can finally give like Holy Vintage my all. Like, I've been wanting to grow our online presence and grow our Instagram. And focus on our content creation for that. And then SoCo Market has a lot of new things coming this year too that I want to get my all to. So that is going to be my main focus, as well as continuing. I do small business mentorship or consulting. So I want to continue to really, be able to give my clients the all and just all of me in those areas.
That is incredible. That's all I can honestly say. I feel like I'm saying something short, but it really is incredible.
Thank you.
What advice do you have for young women who want to become entrepreneurs, scared to take the leap? Like, what would you tell them? Something different than just do it.
No, definitely. Yeah. Well, I asked them, why are they passionate about what they want to do? Because that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that has to be the root of it for it to succeed the long term.
The root of it. And what are some fears that what comes to your mind, like what's holding you back from doing it right now? So really just talking through those having those conversations with people, and that's just making them realize that they can do it. And it's really just yourself that's holding you back from taking that leap.
You're your own biggest enemy for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And your hardest critic.
Yeah, 100%. And what's stopping you from moving is usually you.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of things. I noticed on your Instagram stories the past few days, like you're kind of doing like workshops for young women entrepreneurs, like specifically, right?
Oh, yes.
So what's the scoop on those?
Yeah. So, just being able to collaborate with a lot of, women entrepreneurs in the community, like when we get together, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome to build connections within the community, and like we're all hungry for that, especially for like-minded people our age. Like you guys said too, a lot of like the mixers are, usually older demographics. So like, let's start something new, so kind of starting groups like that, and hopefully hosting more mixers with the SoCo Market. I didn't know so many people were unaware of like what a mixer event is.
Right.
Yeah. So
because I feel like a mixer is not really like something that people our age start doing until maybe you're like 30, 40. Like that's when the mixers start kicking in, or like when you have a corporate job is when you start going to mixers. But again, you have to be brought into that environment. So a lot of people do, I feel like, get more like, oh, well, maybe it's going to be a lot of older people. But like when we went, we had a great time. Like we were there. Everybody there was like around our age. Everybody was an entrepreneur. Everybody has the same goals, same mindset as us. So it really just pushes you to want to be a better person, like a better version of yourself every day.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a workaholic too, so I'd like to go one of those every single night for dinner. Ideally, I love networking and honestly just talking business. I could relate to that. But you kind of spoke on like being a workaholic and attaching your identity to your companies, like being a bad thing. There is a lot of, it seems like toxicity in entrepreneurism and like hustle culture. Like don't sleep 3 hours and work 21 hours. Like it's the most ridiculous stuff in the world. Honestly, people should work less and get a higher quality out of the things they do instead of running themselves.
Like stop these side hustles. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm just never been about the side hustle thing, like starting all these things. I'm like, why work so much like that?
Yeah.
Focus on one thing, water one seed.
Yes, exactly.
Word to that. Word to that. When's the next SoCo Villages? Where could people?
Yes. So I think tonight we're going to announce our 2023 market events. So our first market, our season will start in April. So I decided we're going to just continue hosting our markets in Cotati. We're just going to dedicate just hosting them in Santa Rosa. Just because of we're able to accommodate more vendors.
It's more central.
Yeah, I just can't do Cotati anymore. So it will be the first Friday in April from 5 to 9. And so we'll have our consistent market year, April through August. So we have some fun things lined up for that. And we have a huge event in August. That's going to be our first time having something like it. I'll probably just share more later once everything's more finalized, but it's going to be a fun event.
That's fine. It's cool how you work so like far into the future. Like, you know what's happening throughout the whole year. That's admirable in itself too. We could honestly find like more of that organization in our day-to-day structure of our business.
Going back to like your market year, I know this year you did a holiday market. What was that like? Because it was the first indoor market. And it was a pretty big deal. How many vendors did you have there?
We had 155.
155 vendors.
What's that day look like for you? Just as the one running it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that was our first time having an indoor market inside a venue and our first time having that many vendors. So again, that was really intimidating to me. It's a huge space. You know, the Sonoma County Fairgrounds is huge. And I only know the place because I would go there for like their beer festivals.
Right.
Like that,
right.
You know? So I was familiar with the venue, but so that was a whole process in itself. Having to map out the vendors. We had like close to 300 people apply to that event. And I think that's one of the hardest part is denying people for the event.
How do you pick?
So yeah, I'm pretty strategic with it. You know, we have certain categories like jewelry, plants, candles, and all that. So I only allow so many. I try to give new people an opportunity to participate. So that sometimes means denying people who, you know, have done it before. So it's been hard to find that balance. And a lot, you know, surprisingly, some people do take it personal. And I've had to, you know, get backlash for that. But again, I can't please everyone, which is a hard thing for me to do. So that's kind of my process behind, you know, the selection with the vendors. But yeah, so that day, we had it indoors again, our first holiday indoor market. Our first ticketed event as well. I was scared to do that just because I didn't want it to discourage anyone from coming, you know. But you know, tickets were $5. It didn't seem to be an issue for anyone. We didn't get any complaints for that. And yeah, just me and two of my other team members and my sister, we all mapped out the ground. I think that was the hardest part, is really mapping out the ground. And you would think that the communication between the Sonoma County Fairgrounds would be like top notch, but it really wasn't. Like it wasn't. I had to go like let myself into the building to check it out and everything. Like I couldn't get through to them. I had no the one thing that they didn't allow was for me to pick my own food vendors. So I didn't have any control about that. They have their own agreements with local food trucks and stuff. So they're like, we'll bring that in. You know, they're responsible for the alcohol at all. So I was like, okay, great. Well, can you let me know like what food trucks are going to be there and stuff? That never let me know. I didn't find out until like the day of.
Wow, you would not expect that from them. They do events literally
all the time.
That's their one job.
Huge events too.
And I was like, what time can I start setting up? Like, where do I park? Where do all the vendors park? So it was kind of a tedious thing, but now I know. And the venue itself was perfect. The day went, you know, beautiful and stuff, and it was a really great turnout.
How many hours are you working that day to get that done?
That day. Yeah. Oh, I got there at 7.
So not you're not waking up at like 3:30 in the morning, but you're working days, months before to get it together too.
Thankfully, I have like a good system now. But I think the challenging part, every time we get a new facility, a new venue, is the mapping out, making sure we have enough space.
Because you do 10 by 10,
10 by 10s, or a single table setup is like what are options for vendors to sign up for.
Do you like to go back to the same ones then, so you don't have to do it again, essentially? Or
yes,
nice, saves time.
Yeah,
How do you, with everything, like all your businesses have succeeded, essentially.
Thank you.
How are you building buy-in? Like, what's your philosophies on that? I feel like I know, but just answer, please.
What do you mean building buy? Like just growing and building?
Yeah, attracting awareness and people to your business and actually like.
Well, It doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. I enjoy content creation. I didn't realize I enjoy marketing too. So that's like a strong quality that I have in my business. So I run all of our Instagram accounts. I know who our target market is. I know how to appeal to them. And I think that's one thing. So there's been some markets who started after us who, took my blueprint and they thought it was easy.
That's a compliment.
It's not. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, but people don't understand like what else goes into it. It's easy to start a business. It's harder to run a business.
Yes.
And marketing, knowing your customer and how to reach them and, pull them in, it's hard to do.
It's important though. We have this saying we go back and forth around here with to know how John Brown buys, you must see through John Brown's eyes. And to see through John Brown's eyes, you have to listen to what he's saying. So everything comes from understanding the consumer and then crafting ideas up from them, not anyone's ego or status then down, which a lot of businesses for some reason have a very hard time understanding that. But great philosophies, honestly.
Yeah.
How do you, when you're mapping out the SoCo markets, how do you decide what vendors are going to be next to each other? Because I feel like you get a good variety. Like you don't walk by and it's all candles on one side, all shoes on one side. You walk around, you get to see a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's one thing I keep in mind. So of course, when I'm doing the map out, I'm thinking about our attendees, right? When they come, they don't enjoy when all vintage is all one area and stuff. So spreading it out. And of course, you don't want plant business to be next to another plant business, so I try to spread them out so that way it's not too competitive within that market. I think that was a hard thing too when I first started. People were like, well, you're accepting this Lash business, so like I don't think I want to be there. But it's like I wanted to break that way of thinking. Like we can all come together even if we're in the same industry, selling the same product. Like it's okay. The way we deliver it is what makes it different.
Right.
And you is what makes it different.
Yeah. Like it's about what you bring to the table, not, they sell this, I sell the same thing. You guys are never going to be the same.
Yeah.
You're both going to be your own individual business, your own individual marketing team. You guys are going to do things completely different.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's made like the SoCo market successful too is that I have been selected. Like when I first started, I, preached this is for millennial owned businesses. And of course we got like, some older people applying and wanting to be a part of it. But I denied them because I had a vision. I was like, this is who I want to target. I knew the kind of audience I wanted to attract to these events. So I had to make sure that I was continuing to stay true to that vision, even though those kind of people didn't understand, like, why am I not getting into it? And I think for like markets who have started around here, they accept anyone. So when you go, it's like,
not the same vibe.
It's not the same vibe.
Yeah.
Are you reading books, watching podcasts, like doing stuff to become like such a great entrepreneur? Or is this all kind of like learned through experience?
It's all just like, for me, it's just learning through experience. And to be honest, like I'm very faith-based. So everything I do, I pray, ask for God for guidance, for clarity, for creative strategy. That's all I've ever done.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. I mean, I won't go too deep on it, but having a higher power that you have faith in
different for everyone.
Is, I think, the secret sauce is powerful for sure.
Going back to vintage, what has been your holy grail piece? Like the one piece that you're like, I found this and it's the best thing I've ever found.
I mean, I have a couple of my NASCAR jackets. My Home Depot one, that's my favorite one.
It is a cute one.
Yeah, that one. And then I have a couple of the American Thunder t-shirts. I don't know if you've seen those with the Eagles and it has like the lightning bolts all over it. Those are valued pretty high. Those are usually like a little over $100 t-shirts. Wow. So those are definitely some of my precious treasures in my closet.
Can you tell us the most expensive piece of clothing that you've thrifted and sold?
Thrifted and sold. I definitely would say it was probably one of our NASCAR jackets that we've gotten. It was, I can't remember which one it was, but it was so dope. It was like a red and black and white one, like just that one.
That racer vibes?
That racer one, yeah. And this is when, stuff was really hot. Yeah, almost like that one over there. But yeah, and so before opening Holy Vintage, I was doing like small releases through Bow and Arrow. So like I'd curate some pieces, and then once I had enough, I would do like a launch, and we would sell out in minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, every time I did that. So I want to bring that, to Holy Vintage, that exclusivity and stuff.
How many pieces did you typically collect until you had like your collection?
For Holy?
Yeah, for when you did the limited releases.
Oh, for Bow and Arrow. I think we had probably like 20 to 30 pieces.
Wow.
Yeah. I was super selective, when you're curating and stuff, so I wasn't doing just anything. But
yeah, I do love those jackets. Something about those racer NASCAR jackets.
yes.
Makes you want to go fast.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, from like 9 to 14, my grandpa, he wasn't actually my grandpa. He was my great uncle, but I always called him my grandpa because he was best friends with my grandpa. But he used to go to estate sales, garage sales, buy stuff, flip it at flea markets at like the Vets building or
awesome.
Sebastopol.
Yeah.
I was his right-hand man from 9 to 14.
Way.
I just remember like the salesman there being like the most hard bargaining, like scalpel, like they were set on their prices or just trying to get the cheap price ever. Are these kind of vendors that you go out and have to like thrift from to get inventory for stores or like people you're working with? Are they the same sort of hard bargainers?
Yes. I mean, they know the value of what they have. And we made connections. A lot of them actually go there. So that way, you can go and buy in bulk from them. So that's why we went to like Melrose Trading Post. I made some connections there. And then, the Alameda Antique Fair is a huge one. Rose Bowl in LA too. Yep. So we have connections. That's how we go sourcing. Nice. They're able to give us a good price. And yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. That's why all this resonates with me so much too. Cause the same style, it definitely had well-deserved innovation, and you crushed that with making it like more millennial based and younger people vibe. But, man, it's just so good for people for just getting out there and getting the reps in of like trying to sell something, putting yourself out there as every time someone walks by.
Yeah. Gosh, definitely.
I'm sure retail's where you first experienced that.
Yeah. And you know what? I always tell, it's funny. So with small business owners who like sell at the SoCo market, I can tell who's worked retail and who hasn't.
Right.
And I'm like, you should have worked retail before doing this.
I think everybody should have at least one retail job in their life.
Why do you guys say that? Dig a little deeper.
I think it makes you a more understanding person. I worked retail from when I was 16 until I was probably like 18. I used to work at Plato's Closet, and it was great, and I loved it. And I spent every single paycheck I ever made at that store back to that store. And sometimes you would see like people are just so rude to you. And mind you, I'm 16. And I would have like 40-year-old moms screaming at me because, oh, my kid found those shoes first, and then this person took them when we were having like a big sale event or something. And I was like, I am not going to fight for your kid's shoes. Yeah. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what you want me to do. But people just have no patience. And I feel like when you've worked retail, you try to make the best out of your customer's experience. Like you try to see what they're there for, like try to help them out in the best way that you can. And when people don't work in retail, I feel like you lack that like connectability of like, you want to help people and you want to make sure that their experience is like the best.
Yeah, I think, so retail and hospitality, so restaurant are like the two. I'm like, you need to come from either one before starting your business. But I was really grateful for starting my career or my retail, career in working for corporate, because they push you to make sales, right? Like I remember I would always want to cry because my manager was so mean. She's like, you need to go find out every little detail about that person's life. The minute they walk in, you need to sell 5 pairs of jeans. So it really shaped me, but I thrive in that. Like, I feel like it shapes me. I take, criticism really well and all of that. So I'm grateful for that because I was able to bring that into my business, and I knew what not to do with the team, how not to talk to them, so I learned a lot of ins and outs from that point of view.
You grow through the things that feel uncomfortable, essentially. I never had a retail job or a restaurant job for that matter, honestly. We were blue collar workers before we got into entrepreneurism or marketing at all. We had no digital background or anything. But I've heard many, many people say that a retail job and restaurant job, it sounds like you practice patience essentially and
people skills.
Skills.
I feel like especially in restaurants.
Yeah.
In restaurants, I feel like you get tested so much. Like people will just come in there and just scream at you.
Hungry and
when it comes to their food.
You don't want to mess with people, and when they're hungry and then like they walk out, they're like, bye, have a good one. It's like, where was that an hour ago? Like I'm getting the bad end of the stick.
Straight up.
What are the plans with turning it into a nonprofit? Do you have plans of like giving back even more to small business owners, I'm sure?
Yeah, that's exactly like kind of why I'm heading in that direction. I really would love just like a hub where like entrepreneurs can come and just whether it's like this is what I've envisioned pretty much. It's just like a warehouse, small space where we have like an area where you can come shoot content for photography, have like a huge table you can work out of, a place where you can host your own workshops, seminars, whatever that is. And through a nonprofit, you know, you get a lot of, you know, just grants and people wanting to invest in something like that. And I feel like it's so needed in our community. And, you know, a lot of people come to me for advice with starting a business and all of that. So why not like get an actual place where we can do that and where we can go deeper and do workshops and seminars and teach people how to start an Instagram, how to create content. You know, we'd have like you guys come in and do like a marketing seminar with them and teach them basics 101 and all of that.
That's super cool.
You
That
guys
is awesome.
want to do it?
Oh, as you were saying that, I was like, I would love to help with this. But essentially, yeah, teach people how to fish instead of just giving them fish. Yeah, that sounds epic. And there's, you're really good at sniffing out things that aren't in this area and bringing them here. It sounds like this will be the fourth one in a row. So, yeah, we'd love to help. We should definitely talk more about how we can. I'd be very happy to. Very happy to.
Trying to.
You guys got any other questions? With the blank space, we could delete. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm like,
Honestly, my phone has been over there the whole time. So I had a list of questions going down. I think I've remembered them all pretty well.
I feel like we.
But I've been going down them.
Trying to think.
Make sure I'm not missing anything. Thank you for your patience.
No worries.
I'm gonna drink water while we're looking.
Just overall goals for the new year. Why don't you tell us what you got?
Well, yeah, the first one has been selling my business. You know, that was
Quick for the new year?
quick. That was quick. Yeah, so I definitely started the new year off strong. And yeah, so I think this year I just want to, like I said, just really focusing on growing and scaling Holy Vintage, growing our online presence with that, and you know, transferring the SoCo market or taking it into a nonprofit. And then, you know, we have a new event coming in too, so I have to really just start organizing and planning for that. And I just want to really enjoy the things I like doing, like going to concerts,
Yes.
you know, like going out to eat, traveling a little bit more. Like I'm now going to have the time to do that. So that's what I'm really looking forward to in this new year, and just, you know, kind of enjoying life.
At the beginning of this year, you had done a workshop where we made our vision boards. Do you want to talk about some of the stuff that you put on your vision board?
Yes. Yeah. So one of them was traveling. I did throw in some like concerts in there too. I think for me, my escape is like just being out on a beach, like with nothing there. Yeah. I like to just go out into the water and just lay on my back and just look at the sky. And like in those moments, that's where I just feel like most alive, you know, that's where I just, you know, yeah. So I want to do more of that.
Yeah.
I am looking into investing into, commercial property or into owning my own property too. That's what I'm really saving up for, especially after selling this business. Right away I was like, okay, I'm going to start this new business venture that I've been thinking of. Like, now's the time. But I'm like, no, I think it's time to like put it into some property for ownership. Ownership was like the main thing I had written on my business or my vision board was ownership. It's time for me to own something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Property wise.
That's sick.
That's where the real like power of being a business.
Long-term.
Yes, 100%. And something to pass on to the next generation. I personally feel like that's what it's all about, like being here and having the opportunity to build something. Especially, I think like I don't know much about your parents, but I feel like we both have been given good situations from what they created. You said your dad was an immigrant to essentially create better from, right?
Yes.
And I think you have to leave just better for whoever's next. I think that should be the mission for most people.
Yeah, definitely.
Respect.
Yeah. I think too, as an entrepreneur, these are all things that you should think about, you know, long term, like that kind of investment. And not so much spending it on luxury, designer. I've never been about that, you know, and I try
liabilities.
I preach, you know, that's just, not materialistic things. So
they depreciate, they don't appreciate. So putting it into real estate or businesses or stocks, other stuff like that is
I
what's
haven't
going
done
to.
stocks. I've been wanting to get more like knowledge in that, but I don't know.
You know, I'm not an expert in them either because I think I'm just more passionate about like, and we're really focused on just Force Media and this podcast Spitballers right now, but I'm just sort of passionate about actually building businesses more so than I am about like even generating wealth. Like I think it'll be a product of that. I'd rather do this and have this fun environment and have it take a little bit longer instead of just looking at boring numbers all day. It's
And that's going back to what we mentioned earlier about if you have a passion, it's not focusing on like the money side of it.
Yeah.
And you know that money will come once you feel your passion and you continue to do it.
It's a byproduct for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Mercedes, where could everybody find you on social media platforms, your business and everything? Why don't you just plug yourself in? So
Yes. Yeah. So the best way is to just, follow me on Instagram. It's at Mercedes, spelled just like the car. Hernandez or HRNDZ. Yeah. And I mean, in my bio, I have all my business links. And again, those are, gotta update that now, but it's going to be the Soka Market, Holy Vintage. Those are going to be my 2 businesses, and I just sold my first baby.
Right on. Well, again, thank you. You were our very first female guest ever. So this was an awesome experience for us, and we really appreciate your time and everything.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed just having these conversations with you guys.
Likewise.
It's
really likewise. Nice. Very entrepreneurial episode again. So we're happy to do so anytime.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. Peace.
Laters.